Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Eric Overton. I'm not Tom. My hair does not look that good, but I am going to introduce him. And by way of introduction, I'm not going to read his bio. I know Tom went to A&M, and he probably can't read, but I trust most of you can. And so if you read it, you will be very impressed, because Tom is a very impressive guy. But what I want to do is I want to talk about Tom, my friend. When I first found out about Tom, I was actually working with his brother, who's a land broker in Houston, whose name is Tim, and I got a package that they had put together, and I could have sworn it said Tim Dosch on there twice. So I went to talk to someone that I work with about what a dummy this Houston real estate broker was, and I said, he put his name on there twice, and he said, well, look at it again. It doesn't say Tim twice, it says Tim and Tom. So I said, well, who's this kid and where did he come from? And then that was the first time that I got hit by Hurricane Tom. And it was just this really energetic, excited person who was always happy and always wanted to be helpful. And that really started what was the beginning of a beautiful friendship that we had. And we started working together when he lived in Houston. And even though I was up in Dallas, I was doing a lot of work in Houston at the time. And we just developed a friendship through work, which a lot of us who are in real estate are blessed to have. We do business with people that we like to do business with, and then occasionally some of those people become friends. And Tom was one of those people for me. And in about 2015, when there was a little bit of a downturn in the oil business, Tom, if you know Tom, he's always talking about growth and how does he grow the team and grow the people and grow the kingdom and just grow everything that he does. I said, Tom, you ought to really look at coming to Dallas and, move up here. You guys are based in Houston, but, Houston's going to be real cyclical and you've got a lot of energy. You're a little bit younger. Dallas is a great market. I think you could bring your system and process to Dallas and do really well. And of course, he shut that down pretty quick and said, oh, no, Jackie would never go for that. We're not going to do it. It doesn't make any sense. And I said, okay. And I just kept saying that. And then one day he called me and said, hey, Eric, me and Tim and David, we hired this consultant and we paid him thousands of dollars and asked him how we should grow our business. And he said, you should move to Dallas. And so Tom and his family moved to Dallas. And I am so great that they did. And then the last thing that I'll say is Tom and I's friendship really transcends real estate and transcends business. We've had the opportunity to run a few longer trail races together, and we ran a 50-mile trail race in May. And as you can imagine, that takes more than a couple hours. And we did that together, and it's really a great metaphor for life. And it's a great metaphor, I think, for our friendship, because there are times in a race like that where, I would be hurting and I would be struggling, and Tom was there to pick me up. There were times when he was hurting and he was struggling, and I was there to pick him up. And then there was a lot of time that we were just there together. And in all the time that we were there together, we were able to have great conversations about our family, about our faith, about our work, about our hopes, about our dreams, about, what we want for each of our kids, what we hope to accomplish as we get older. And it was just a really great time that we got to spend together. And we've done that on multiple occasions. And as I thought about what I was going to say today, I was drawn to 2 Timothy 4:7, where Paul writes to Timothy, and he says, I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, and I have kept the faith. And I think that's really one of the things that I admire most about Tom, is that every day, no matter what he's doing, he's fighting a good fight. He's always there to finish the race, even though he hadn't finished it yet. And by all means, he's going to keep the faith. And so I'm going to pray for him, and then you guys can listen to his testimony. Dear God, I just thank you for the opportunity to come here today and share this meal with all these people. Thank you for this food and for everyone who prepared it for us and served it to us, and for everyone who made the time and the effort to come here today to hear this. God, I just thank you for my friend Tom. I thank you for Jackie. I thank you for their 5 beautiful children. Thank you for the companies that he has built and the people that he has touched and impacted for your kingdom. God, he has a love for you that has been contagious to me, and I know it has to others as well. And so I just pray for him as he speaks, that you would open the ears of those who would hear it, that they would come to know Jesus more or better through his words to us today. And it's in his name I pray. Amen.
All right, so the year was 2015. and my wife Jackie, who's over here, and I were preparing to go on a biblical tour in Israel. We always wanted to go to the Holy Land, and this was an opportunity we had through an organization I was involved with to go see the biblical sites, walk where Jesus walked, really just get to see areas that I always read about in my Bible, but that I had never seen in person. And in preparation for that trip, as we were getting ready, we were sent a book to read, and it was written by the trip tour guide, and the book was called Killing Christians. And so, as you can imagine, a very intense book. I don't know if you've read it. If you haven't, you should. But we didn't really want to read that book right away in preparation for this trip. We already were concerned and had family members telling us, don't go to Israel right now. There's pretty much never a good time to go to Israel. Right now would also not be a good time to go to Israel. But back then it was ISIS. ISIS was causing havoc across the world, but there was a lot of concern that they could be doing something in Israel. I didn't actually start reading the book until we boarded the plane. And it was interesting because the cover of the book was actually a location that we went to on the trip. So like I said, it kind of woke me up to what was happening in that region and really made me step out of my own place of fear. It was a big deal for Jackie and I to go just on the trip. Now, we were completely safe the whole trip. There was nothing that we probably should have been concerned about. But there's people over there that were not safe. And the stories were about fellow Christians that are persecuted daily for their faith. And a lot of them, the whole reason they're persecuted and sometimes killed, which is the title of the book, was because they share their faith with others. And so for me, it was really challenging because I lived in Houston at the time, as Eric said, and I had a real estate business that was doing really well. And I really thrived off of not rocking the boat, knowing what to say, knowing how to get through meetings, knowing how to really get what I wanted to get as a broker, get two people to agree to like each other and move forward and wire some money over so I get paid. And so I was good at that, but then I'm reading stories about people that they're making decisions more based on their faith, on what matters even more than their life. And for me, I grew up in a Christian family. I had been raised, going to church and just being involved in church, but it was like I said, it was more morality, and it was a lot of just trying to do the right thing. It wasn't necessarily putting myself out there. And there was one story in particular in this book that really caught me, and it was a story of a Syrian pastor named John. And I've actually gotten to meet John since reading about him, which was incredible in and of itself. But John was, like I said, he was a pastor in Syria. As you know, ISIS completely turned Syria upside down, and the Syrian civil war displaced millions of people across the world. But also, you had over 1 million people that were killed in that war, in that conflict. And John's story is that, excuse me. John's story is that as a pastor, he had been ministering to Muslims his whole life, wanting to convert them to Christianity, and he just was not seeing fruit from that. And then the war happened, and they started becoming way more open to the gospel and to Christianity. They needed hope beyond where their hope had been. Well, ISIS basically gave everyone an ultimatum. If you're a Christian, you can either leave the country or we're going to kill you. And him, along with his friends, decided, we're going to pray about this. And the decision they made was, we're not going to leave the country. We're going to stay. We feel like God has placed us here for a purpose in this time. We're going to stay in the country. To memorialize that, they bought a property. And the purpose of that property was, that's where they were going to bury each other after they were killed for sharing their faith and for the gospel. They had friends that had already been killed. And I was reading this story, and then I was getting to interact with people on this trip and in Israel that had similar type stories, and it really challenged me. Am I all in my faith? I don't think that if I was John, I would have stayed in that country. I think there's very little chance I would have stayed in that country. I think I would have left immediately and probably done what most people did. And I wouldn't have even probably been thinking about, are people going to be open to the gospel? Is this why God put me on this earth? This is an incredible opportunity. I probably wouldn't have even been thinking about that. Well, God really worked on my heart during this time. And so my wife and I, we cornered Tom Doyle, the guy who had authored the book and who was our tour guide. And we cornered him at the end of the trip, and we wanted to ask him a question. And the question was, really it was a question that I was asking, should I leave real estate and should I go into full-time missions? Well, I want to thank Matthew Heinrich for having me here today, just giving me the opportunity to talk and share more about my story. Eric, I asked Eric to intro me because I knew he'd be the humor today. So I appreciate him. He is a very good friend and great encouragement. So I'm thankful that he was here. Also, my wife, Jackie. We do have 5 little kids, so it's kind of a miracle that she's able to be here today. We were just going to bring the kids, but that probably wouldn't have worked out very well since most of them are under 3, so that would have been a busy morning. But what I'm going to talk about today, just in the time we have together, is really going from success to significance in career and family, and then finding your calling. And this is just part of my story and really where I've been the last 10 plus years. So first, talking about success to significance in career. I went to Texas A&M, as Eric said. So awesome. I was hoping there'd be some whoops. I know in Houston it'd be like the whole room would have whooped. In Dallas, we don't quite have the same monopoly on the market. But I went to A&M. I was a finance major. I went into investment banking out of school, and really my mindset on career at the time was, I want to make as much money as I can. My dad hadn't really enjoyed his career. He had a good job. He stayed with one company for 35 years, but he didn't enjoy work. And I saw that every day. So my perception was, I probably won't enjoy work either, but I just want to make as much money as I can. Isn't that what it's about? So I chose a job in investment banking, and you probably know where this is going to go. You're going to make a lot of money. You're going to hate your life. And so that's where it went for me. I had a job that paid really well. So from a lot of standpoint, that was a great thing. I was married just 3 months after graduation, and so I needed to support my wife. We had debt to pay off. I had debt. She had debt that I inherited. I was able to pay that off pretty quick because of the money I was making. But what I wasn't experiencing in this job was, first of all, just a culture and people that I really wanted to be with. The decisions they were making and the decisions that were made on a daily basis around me, I just didn't agree with. And I honestly just hated being there. I hated being yelled at, cussed at. Everything was about, this deal, this is what we have to get done. And, I was told, like, you're a light bulb. If we need to unscrew you and throw you away, we can just get another light bulb. So an honor student from A&M of finance, I didn't think I was all that, but I thought I was better than a light bulb. So I thought this is probably not where I see myself long term. And I really just started questioning in general, am I just totally in the wrong industry? So as you tend to do, and as I tend to do, I went drastic. Like I was like, maybe I should be a park ranger because I love hiking, or maybe I should be a fireman because my father-in-law is a fireman, and maybe I should be an FBI agent because I have one of those in my family. And so I started kind of going a little bit to areas that I probably never would have been good at any of those things or enjoyed them. And it was around this time that my dad brought me a book called How to Discover Your Strengths. And there was an assessment with that called StrengthsFinder. And I took that assessment, and really what the book talked about was, if you do what you're good at, if you find your strengths, the way God's made you, you're going to just find a lot more enjoyment. It's not the belief that I have to work in a career for 40 years and hate it every day. It's the belief that God actually made me a certain way, and if I can find that and be passionate about it, I can really enjoy that. And so I read that book, realized that a big part of why I didn't like where I was also just I wasn't getting to use my strengths. And it was around the same time that my brother approached me, Tim and Tom. Not a lot of creativity on the names, so there's been plenty of confusion on that over the years. But Tim approached me and said, we're coming out of the Great Recession. What do you think about coming into real estate? And again, I was thinking about money up until that point. And going into real estate, as you know, in the commission industry is kind of like nothing's guaranteed. So I was going from like a really good job to a job where I may not make any money. And that was part of why I just thought, I don't know if that's what I want to do. And the second part was, I didn't know if I wanted to work with family. I mean, Tim and I are 8 years apart in age and very different personalities. And I thought, we're from a big family. This could like ruin our holidays for the rest of our lives. This doesn't work out. And I can't imagine arguing over finances when it comes to like business, just with how opposite our personalities are. But I started thinking just deeper about the opportunity, and I'll never forget, I thought, for sure we have to get paid for what we do. We have to support our family. That's important. But it's also, like, what's the purpose behind what we're doing, and who are we doing it with? I realized I wanted to spend all my time with Jackie. We were newly married, and we're just loving being together. But I didn't get to. I spent most of my time with people at the office. And so it was the people I was with, it was the purpose, and then it was just the flexible schedule. I had no flexibility in my current role. I was told that if I didn't respond to any communication within 2 minutes, so text message, email, it could be a fireable offense. And so on my honeymoon, I was checking in. I'm an analyst. I really couldn't do anything, but I had to get on calls and, work on my honeymoon. And that was, again, not what I was wanting to do. So I made the decision to overcome the issues with family to join Tim in real estate. And what was so interesting was I very quickly fell too in love with what I did. And Jackie actually had to approach me after a couple months and say, I think you love your work too much. You're working every bit as much as you worked in investment banking. It's just no one's making you do it. And I realized my priorities are just out of whack. I've now just traded what was kind of a ball and chain for I'm my own ball and chain now, because I'm just so focused on wanting to make money, wanting to do deals. And so Jackie really challenged me on that, and I'm thankful for it because I had to just set boundaries in place with my career to say that that's not how I'm going to be. And so it was really from there that we started finding success in our business. And with that success and setting boundaries and really just thinking more about purpose, we started growing our team, as Eric said, and hiring people. And I started thinking more about my career being more than just making more money, because I did have success early on where I was making money and making good money. And I just realized all it made me want to do was make more money. That's all that really happened. I paid off all the debt. I didn't have any debt. We bought a house. We basically had whatever we needed. And then at that point, it just wasn't fulfilling, because then you just start looking at other people and thinking, well, I could have, something nicer, a bigger house, or whatever it is. And so fortunately, around the same time, I was introduced to several ministry opportunities where really just started focusing outside of ourselves and started saying, we're gonna focus more on what we can give and ask the question more on what should I actually keep and live off of versus, the idea of, I'm going to give 10% and then just continue to expand my lifestyle, because I just honestly wasn't finding fulfillment and joy in that. And I was finding a lot more fulfillment and joy in giving back. So with career, I've realized over time, it's more of the opportunity that success brings is to influence others. And you can find significance in that through influencing about what really matters. I still have the tendency, just with deals and success that we've had, to get caught up in the rat race of more is more is more, but more is really not more. And that's not where satisfaction is. And so I just want to encourage you today with, if you share any of that in your story with your own career and with success, or if you're just trying to find that success, the success itself is not satisfying. God's made the success for it to really become significant. And that really translates into my second point, which is our family. So as Eric said, I have 5 kids. And I've realized with my family, I'm replaceable at work. I'm not replaceable in my family. I'm not replaceable as a dad. I'm not replaceable as a husband, my wife. And that's really where my legacy is going to be. I'm thankful because I learned that from my parents. I'm one of 7, so I'm from a really big family. I'm the 5th in line out of the 7. We were all homeschooled. So between that and being an Aggie, there's really not a joke that you can make to offend me, because my whole life has been people making fun of me. So I'm very used to that. But I'm actually thankful. I used to avoid telling anyone I was homeschooled, because just the next questions that would come were just so unbearable. But I realized that I'm thankful that my parents did that. I mean, they sacrificed a lot to homeschool all 7 of us. And the reason they did it was because they wanted us to have a very specific upbringing and education. They wanted us to really become leaders one day. They wanted to instill biblical values in us. They wanted us to see ourselves as changers in the world and not just to kind of get into the system. And so, like I said, they sacrificed a lot to do that. My mom was basically homeschooling one of us for 20 plus years, just because there were so many of us. So very thankful for that. And just that intentionality is something that Jackie and I, it's really important to us with our kids. And so for me, I think the struggles I have are with connectivity today, with technology, with never being off. again, I don't have anyone telling me, you have to respond in 2 minutes. I'm doing that to myself now by always having my phone or checking my email or text message. And it's amazing. Even my 18-month-old, she always looks over if I'm with her and I check my phone. It's like she knows that I'm checking my phone and I'm not spending time with her, and that blows me away. And so it's like, it's hard, but it's getting home and putting the phone upstairs, or just trying to take time to really just be present with my kids and realize that what I'm told by others and what I've already seen is the time just goes so fast, racing against the clock. And my real legacy is not going to be, oh, Tom did that deal, that amazing mixed use project, whatever it was. It's going to be, no, Tom's kids, they follow the Lord. Tom's got an incredible family. He's got multiple generations of kids following the Lord. And so, again, no one else can take that place. I'm in that position as a father and husband of my family, and that's so important to me. And it's something, again, I learned from my family that we're really just trying to instill in our kids is just that wanting them to grow up, to just generationally pass that on to them as well. And I wanted to mention too, just on that topic, Bill Dotson's here, but he started a ministry called Abiding Fathers. It's been big encouragement to me. He's sitting over here in the back. And what that really taught me is that a lot of us as dads just aren't very present. So a lot of what I just said is just about being present. But there's a big need for us to have our own relationship with the Lord, abiding with Him, so that we can really be the dads that our kids need. And that goes so much more beyond just being present. I mean, we are called to be raising spiritual champions, to be raising kids that make an impact in the world. And that's, gosh, think about that. Like, we can do deals, we can do real estate, but there's actually a life that's dependent on us as dads and as moms too. But I just want to mention that because Bill spent so many years of his life just for that cause, which I think is so important. The next thing I want to talk about is finding your calling. So this has been really near and dear to me because I went through a Christian leadership program about 10 years ago where it's called the Master's Program. It's actually run by Jeff Gerhardt, who spoke at DREM last year and lives here in Dallas. But you go through a program and you learn about just how God has made you. And you really learn about just the opportunities He's given you, the networks, even your background. A lot of what I've said about myself, that's very unique to me. Just how I've grown up, what my struggles with them, just the different blessings God's given me. And it's all really intended to be, as Christians, what are we made to do? Why are we here? And, I have to start by saying, calling is an incredible thing, but you don't have a calling, a capital C calling, unless you have a relationship with God. And we only have that through the work that Jesus Christ did on the cross. And that's really the most amazing thing, that Jesus died for us on the cross, forgave us of our sins, and gave us a relationship with God. That is so incredible. And that allows us to then join God in what He's doing around the world. And this is where I get really excited, because Jackie and I said yes to go on a lot of trips just early on in our marriage. And a lot of them were more like mission-oriented trips. It's kind of like, should we go on vacation? Should we go on a mission trip? And we decided to go on the mission trip. And then we always felt like, wow, that was incredible. I'm so glad we did that. But seeing God at work, seeing, like I shared the story with John, that he's converting, people to become His followers, become His children that have lived in darkness for all these years. He's saving people, He's rescuing them from all kinds of bondage across the world, and getting to be a part of that is so incredible. And what I've realized is we all get excited about different things. We all have our own passions. And so a lot of it is just finding, what has God made you passionate about, and chasing after that. For me, as you can tell, it's a lot of evangelism and discipleship, and a lot of global missions, just from what I've seen around the world. And that gets me fired up, and I love it. And I'm, to help support a lot of those ministries. But for you, it could be something totally different, which is great. A lot of it is just God's calling us to get off the sidelines and get in the game. And a lot of you are already in the game, but if you're not, I'm telling you, it's way more fun to be on the field than it is to be in the stands. And again, whether that's in your family, or whether that's in a ministry context, or whether that's just in your office, God wants you in the game for Him. And all those concentric circles should all really overlap. It's not separating our lives into different areas. And so part of that journey for me was, we actually started a nonprofit. I started with my business partners in 2018. And the idea was, we'd had success in work. We had built a really good network. of other believers in the industry. And we had a lot of ministries that we were connected with that just needed so much help. Some of them we were really passionate about, and some of them that just didn't hit our passions. And we thought, what if we created a nonprofit where we can invite our network of believers into opportunities to partner with these ministries across the world. We'll underwrite the whole thing, so all the money coming through is just 100% goes through to those ministries and the causes, and then we'll report back on what they're doing, because not everybody can go to Israel, not everybody can go to Africa or somewhere overseas, but if you get to hear the stories of what God is doing, you're way more likely to get excited about getting in the game and getting invested in that. And so we started this organization called 100 Times Harvest, and the thought was, it's Luke chapter 4, it's on the parable of the soils, and it's the fourth soil that bore the most fruit, the seed landed in good soil and it produced 100-fold. I'm a business guy and I have a lot of investments I'm in, and I'm trying to invest in deals that return a good investment, right? And so we thought in the kingdom space, it should be the same way. It shouldn't be, I feel guilty, I need to give some money and feel good about myself, I'll give some money. It should be, we're going to try to be really strategic. We actually want to see change. We want to see whatever the cause is, we want to see real impact. We call it moving the needle. Like, we want to see the needle move on progress. And so we're going to give to these organizations, and we're going to expect there to be results. We're obviously going to trust God for those results, but we're going to expect there to be results, and there's going to be accountability in that. And that's been an incredible journey. It's been 6 years now. We've given away over $6 million, and really it's the stories that we've gotten to be a part of, the trips we've gotten to go on, and just the opportunities, like I said, to just feed into the ways God's made us from a passion standpoint. And you need to be a part of that. They're all around us here in Dallas, but then also just across the world. The opportunities are there. A lot of it is just saying yes and just pursuing it. And so that's been something that I'm very thankful for. I get to do that actually with my two business partners, and then my dad, after he retired after 35 years in oil and gas, he now manages the nonprofit for us. So I get to work with my older brother, my dad, and then my younger brother, John's over here. He works with me here in Dallas. So it's really become a lot of overlap with family. I don't know if I have that figured out, but if you want to ask me afterwards, how do you work with family? I can give you some tips, because we're all very different. I would say I don't know how I would work with family that aren't believers, because there's a lot of forgiveness. There's a lot of just recognizing that I screw up, they screw up, and we have to work through it. But in closing, what I want to say is, hopefully something that I've shared has spoken to you. Again, I think we probably all would say, no matter how much time we're spending with our spouse or our kids, that we wish that we had more time. And a lot of it is not just about the amount of time, but it's just being intentional. It's just about really thinking about, like, from a business standpoint, we try to make plans begin with the end in mind. It's the same thing with family. It's like, are we really beginning with the end in mind in the way we're interacting with our spouse and with our kids? And so maybe that's something you can take away today. Maybe it's finding your calling. I mean, the master's program was incredible in my life, going through that 3-year program. That's available. Jeff lives here in Dallas, which is incredible. So ask me about that afterwards. I have a lot of friends that have been through it. Everyone has been really impacted by it. There's a lot of incredible work being done. But I think the main thing is just, look at where God's at work. He's at work all around us. Just start paying attention to that. That's something that I've just been blessed getting to do. And by doing that, just say yes to something that you're passionate about and just dive in. I mean, that to me, and now it looks a little bit different with 5 little kids than it did when I was single, but there's still things and there's new things that I'm passionate about now. And so it's just the journey of following God daily and submitting to his will and finding where he wants us to be. So the question was, should I leave real estate and go into full-time missions? Spoiler alert, I didn't leave real estate. I think at the time that just seemed like, really impacted kind of a mountaintop experience. I guess I just need to leave real estate, kind of leave everything behind. And the advice that Tom Doyle gave me, which I appreciate so much to this day, was, you have so much opportunity where you are. You already have so much influence. Like, first of all, you came to Israel on this trip and you want to support the work and you're passionate about that, but you're going to go home to Houston at the time and you're going to have people there that you can tell the story to and you can impact. Like, if you can open those doors and if you can share that impact, honestly, there's a lot of people that do plan to come into missions and they don't have any of that platform that you have. So use the platform that you have. And, 10 years later, a lot of small steps have resulted in a long journey, maybe not 50 miles worth running with Eric, but a long journey just where God has brought me. And I'm so thankful for just, God's love for me and how he has just worked with me through me figuring this out, just figuring out how to follow him. Because, the exciting thing is it's a relationship. It's not just there's a roadmap and I know exactly what's going to happen tomorrow. It's just a relationship. And when I mess up, he's there to forgive me. And when I follow him, it's amazing because it truly is abundant life. And just abiding life in him is so fulfilling. So for my friend John, like I said, I've gotten to meet John. The graveyard in Syria is still empty, which is incredible. So I shared earlier that he had, bought that property, built that graveyard, and it's not for a lack of people trying to kill him. I mean, the stories are incredible, but not only is the graveyard empty, but thousands of people have come to Christ because of the work that they've done staying in Syria. And so he's exactly where he's supposed to be. That's how I want to be. I want to live my life, not focus so much on the danger at hand or even just, what my business mind would tell me, but really on what is God doing? I want to be a part of that. And so that's why I encourage you today, just, are you where God wants you to be in your career, your family, and your calling? Thank you.